All right, guys, welcome back to another video. I hope you're ready because today Lilith just dropped the 2023 roadmap for WarPath. They kind of have March, April, and June outlined as far as what's going to come in terms of a few different milestones. First things up, they're introducing 2 new officers. I know what you guys are thinking, more brand new officers. It's a pay grab. They did the same thing in Art of Conquest. They got to a certain point where they just started releasing officers left and right. So we're gonna get 1 new ground officer, and they're also introducing 1 new officer for your fighter jets. That's pretty cool. Now, what they're also doing with officers, and they actually made a statement on this because people have been complaining that the old officers have lost their value. And what they said is, commanders have always asked for more officers to customize their strategies to their personal needs. Update version 7 will see the arrival of 2 new officers, 1 for ground and 1 for fighter planes. At the same time, some commanders also have expressed their fatigue regarding the release of many new officers. This issue will be addressed through the introduction of the officer skill slot feature, which will give older officers their value back on the battlefield. And that is also on the roadmap. They're introducing what's called the officer skill slot. They've not said what that actually looks like, but what I gather is it's something like an older officer might be able to be assigned to a skill slot of another officer that you're currently using, and their skills will become supportive skills, maybe something like boost the current skills of the current officer you're using. But we don't really know what that looks like. That's just speculation. But they are going to have a feature that allows you to use your older officers. And I'm assuming that's going to imply in addition to your current officers, because I think they know just as well as we know, older officers are not simply going to replace your current officers unless they do a complete redesign. And then again, you're probably not going to go that direction because you might feel like you're losing your value. What will be interesting to see is if they actually slow down the release of officers once they introduce the officer skill slot. All right, so the next thing that they're actually doing is they're reworking the migration system. So immigration between servers will no longer require migrate commands if all the criteria is met. They actually put out a pretty comprehensive statement on this a few weeks ago, and here's what they said. They said they'll firstly implement free migration attempts between certain servers. That is, immigration between these servers will no longer require migrate commands. So that's pretty interesting. Secondly, we'll impose immigration restrictions on servers. The restrictions mainly to ensure the overall power between each server is balanced. Therefore, we'll divide servers, and here's the important part, into 3 categories. They're then going to sort the total power of the top 300 players in each category of servers, and the top servers with the most power, they're going to mark those as glorious servers. Total power will be calculated regularly, and each time rankings will be refreshed. If players want to migrate to a glorious server, they will be subject to a certain power limit. So migration is getting a pretty big overhaul. I think that's healthy. We need players to be able to move around to servers, but at the same time, we don't need giant whales, 400 mil, 300 mil, migrating around servers and absolutely dominating and killing the game experience for new players, because Lilith does understand they do need those new players. They do produce income. They need those players to grow, and they want them in the game for a long time. And the best way to kill that for them is to have some guy who's spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on the game just absolutely kill their game experience. The second to last thing for March is, of course, the 2-year anniversary event. So that's going to be pretty cool. If you remember, you get this little anniversary booklet, you get some medals, you get some awards, and you kind of get some statistics about your account from the past year. We are going to have that event again. Along with that, I'm assuming there's going to be some more picture frames and other items that we can collect. So that'll be pretty cool. The last item they have planned for March, this one is absolutely huge. I think this is a game changer. They have WarPath planned for PC. What does that mean? So WarPath, of course, is iOS, Android. The only other way to play it on PC right now is through an emulator like BlueStacks or Nox, and the gameplay experience and performance is absolutely abysmal. So the fact that they're going to come out with a PC version of WarPath that may actually be playable, and let's cross our fingers, hopefully with somewhat decent graphics, will definitely be a game changer. One, for people that produce content, it'll make it a little easier to record. But really what it boils down to is if you can play it on your PC and your phone can't handle the game, because even on my S21 Ultra, it still gets really hot and there's still a lot of lag. You're gonna have a lot better hardware on a PC, and hopefully you can run the game actually a lot better. The only downside to that is that really caters to PC gamers, but at the end of the day, I think it's good. We're still going to have Android. We're still going to have iOS. And now we're just going to have an additional platform for PC. And I think that's great. So that brings us into April. And in April, one of the first things they have on there is the Ultimate Conquest. And they've been talking about this for some time. A lot of people have been saying, take the most powerful alliances across all the servers and shove them into their very own conquest, right? So these are the legendary alliances that are absolutely pay to win, just absolutely enormous. And it sounds like they're going to create an ultimate conquest. They're going to be able to go there, but all other players, it sounds like there's going to be kind of like a voting. There's going to be a betting system, which will probably entail some rewards. But what will be interesting is if that ultimate conquest is on the same schedule as the normal level 4 city events, or if it's going to be kind of its own thing. So time will tell. The last thing they have lined up for April is a brand new PvE mode. They're calling this the Road to Fearlessness. Defeat enemies and come across stronger opponents each time you climb a level. So it almost sounds like Mortal Kombat. You're going to start at the bottom and you're going to defeat enemies and you're going to climb your way up and you're just going to keep having harder and harder enemies as you go. So some kind of tower type situation. That kind of sounds what it's like to me. The last two items are really both exciting and interesting. So first off, anti-tank gun. Everybody has been saying for a long time, especially those that came to the game because it was a World War II game, or an anti-tank gun rework. So that way it has an AA mode like the light tank. And they actually said they were going to do this a long time ago. And then they came out and said that they were not going to ever buff AA on light tanks because it wasn't their intended design for the light tank and that they were happy with how it is. But they just came out on the roadmap for June and said that anti-tank guns are going to get AA. And here's the interesting part. Anti-tank guns will not only be highly effective against tanks, but will also be able to penetrate Air Force units. So that's really interesting. So it sounds like light tanks, there's not probably a lot of penetration that happens on aircraft because light tanks just don't do that. But the anti-tank gun, it sounds like they're going to use the penetration mechanic for that unit, and so you're going to get that damage bonus if you penetrate the armor of a plane, which is really interesting. So I'm all for that. It gives anti-tank guns a much bigger purpose. The only downside is ever since they buffed base AA and introduced the AA research, bombing runs haven't really been the norm, at least for me. Before that patch, every level 4 I would get bombed out all the time. So that was just a huge thing, and now it hasn't happened at all since that patch. So I don't know how useful an anti-tank gun with AA is actually going to be. It's not going to leave your base, but because bombing runs don't seem to be as typical anymore, especially because people might have disassembled a lot of their bombers to make modern units, it's hard to say whether AA on ATG will be useful or not. What it might do is actually finish off killing bombing as a meta. So we'll have to see on that one. The only people really still bombing bases at the end of the day are people that actually have modern bombers 8.1, 8.2 or higher. We're talking 10, 15, 20 mil bombers that can actually do some damage. I was able to make a bomber at 8.2 at like 12 mil unbuffed, and I was able to bomb a 70 mil to 100 mil base out in about 10 minutes, but that's a long time to sit there and just keep clicking the bombing button. It's a little boring. So I do think it's cool. I'm totally on board with ATG getting AA capabilities, but we'll just have to see how that one plays out. All right, and the last one on the roadmap, which is really, really interesting, and people asked for it, they're going to introduce super weapons to WarPath. Super weapons are in development and will bring new combat strategies to the battlefield. I don't know how I feel about this one. I don't feel like super weapons kind of fit into the game experience. Now we're kind of going more into a command and conquer type of game experience if they introduce super weapons. I think when they introduce super weapons, it's already on the roadmap. They probably are going to, unless lots of people complain. I think they're going to be an alliance skill. So you've got base shields, you've got village burn reduction, you've got training. I think super weapons are going to be an alliance skill. There's no way they're going to give individual players a super weapon power. Even if they did, it would probably be not that strong because you wouldn't want an alliance of 255 players just having superpower skills. That wouldn't make sense. So I really do think it's going to be an alliance skill. I personally think the game should not have super weapons. I think the game should focus on the ground and air war tanks, infantry, aircraft, bases. I would be okay with them introducing additional structures, destroyable structures with health, or even, not like Cairo cannons. Those are just annoying as snot. But I don't think super weapons have a place in the game. So it'll definitely take the game in a very interesting direction. I don't think the game is ready for that. I think they still have a lot of work to do on the game to make the game experience better as is, such as still find a good purpose for infantry, because they still don't, even with the recent buff of 200% armor damage, but we'll see. So lots of interesting goodies, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'm interested in having a discussion with you guys about what's on the roadmap and what you guys think. I've given you my thoughts. Hopefully you enjoy this content, guys. You're watching DX7 Gaming, and we'll see you next time.